Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel where, as the owner of a French hot hatch myself, I'm very excited to bring to you this Megane RS 275 trophy. Now, I think that this car on the second-hand market could be one of the best value for money hot hatches around because think of the pedigree. Renault have been at it since the 80s with hot hatches like the Renault 5 Turbo, for example, the Clio Williams of the 1990s, and then the Clio RSs up until the first of the Meganes back in the mid-2000s, which I think is just an absolute crying shame considering what these cars once represented. Nürburgring lap record, for example, with the Trophy R on 2 separate occasions. So I'm going to drive it this afternoon and tell you what it is like. Well, first of all, on a daily perspective, which a hot hatch fundamentally should be able to do daily duties well, I think there are some better options out there. On a driving perspective, the suspension works pretty well, but on a dailyable perspective, there are certainly better cars out there. But that's the great thing about the car world. There are so many different options out there that you can just have something like a Golf GTI or a Golf R. Driving position is good. I sit quite low in the car, and which is funny considering how tall I am, so I find myself looking up over the wheel and over the dashboard a little bit. But you get used to it. The clutch biting point is pretty low to the ground, and the gear lever is in a pretty good position as well. A little bit far forward compared to other cars I've driven, but nice and close to the steering wheel. Road noise is good. You get a little bit of really tasteful exhaust burble in sport mode, which we are now, which is actually quite satisfying, not quite the way an i30N is, for example, where it's just continuous machine gun fire. But the excellent legroom that this car has means touring in it, suspension aside, actually very easy. This car has the upgraded R-Link infotainment system that wasn't in the 265, which is controlled by this little joystick, which is easy enough to hand actually, it's not too far out of the way. That being said, the sound system in this car is still absolutely rubbish. Control weighting, really quite good. Low clutch biting point, so that takes a bit of getting used to, but very responsive throttle. We are in sport mode, which obviously will aid that. It's pretty much the only thing that sport mode actually does. Brake feel, surprisingly more modulation than you initially expect. They're certainly not touchy brakes, but they are 350mm 4-piston Brembo rotors, so there's plenty of bite force there when you need it. Gear change is good, nice and slick. Not particularly, I guess, like robust in the way it feels, but nice and notchy. The Megane RS has lots of numbers in its name. There was initially the 250, and then the 265, and then the 265 Trophy. And then there was this, and then the more hardcore Trophy R, which reclaimed that Nürburgring position, which was made in response to the Seat, however it's pronounced, Cupra R, which at the time actually briefly held the Nürburgring lap record. It had Öhlins dampers and different coils, roll cage in the back. But power was still about 271 horsepower, which is what this is making, and about 360 newton meters of torque. Now, considering the car only weighs about 1370 kilos or so, plenty of power. The engine down low in normal mode, I must admit, doesn't feel particularly charismatic. It's responsive enough and there's plenty of torque, but it's a little bit muted. You do get, like I said before, a little bit of runoff and burble though. But it's an engine that I find you mainly enjoy when you're in the top of the rev range. Akrapovic exhaust. This was standard on the 275. And so far, handling aside, what I'm loving about this car is its pedal box arrangement. Rev matching and heel toe downshifting, very easy. And such a blippable throttle too, so responsive. I'm gonna say that so far with all the manuals I've driven, this has the nicest pedal arrangement out of all of them. Well, the suspension is certainly firm. Like I said, for daily driving, I think it could get a little bit tiring pretty quickly. But when you start pushing on, it starts working beautifully, and also has something known as Perfo Hub to mitigate torque steer. For example, I drove a couple of weeks ago on the channel a Mark II Focus RS, and that car was very torque steer. It had a similar setup known as the Revo knuckle, and this I think is a little bit more effective. It does have a lot less power, to be fair. We get a little bit of torque steer still, but really not that much at all. So you can really lean on this car coming out of corners, which makes point-to-point driving very effective. But it's a car, as I drive really slow to let the slow traffic in front of me get ahead, it's a car that doesn't feel, compared to like a Golf, or even the Focus, funny enough, this car really encourages the spirit of driving. It doesn't sort of feel right to be babying one of these, which can be quite un-hot hatch-like, but at the same time, quite entertaining in its own right. Steering is beautifully weighted, not a lot of feel at least, but the front end is so keen to turn in, and the back of the car, the chassis balance is just brilliant. So the rear follows what the front is doing, just in perfect unison. It is so honed in that it just makes this sort of driving so enjoyable. And that crackle from the exhaust is just the perfect amount. And you can really just lean on it out of corners, and the diff just gets the power to the road beautifully. Now, while the Focus RS is fresh in my mind, this, or the Focus RS, I know they're not direct competitors, but I'm just saying it purely because they're two Focus front-wheel drive cars that I've driven, so it's probably worth considering. Chassis feel, it's funny because Fords have always had such good chassis, but this, I prefer this. The French just understand how chassis technology should work. And it's a car that has a lot of presence. It's three-door form, which I know the argument is hot hatches should be practical, but three-door hatches just look good. They look more sports car-like than five doors. And as much as I love the look of the new 280s, I think, and I'm going to reserve judgment because I haven't driven one, but I think our Renault Megane RSs deserve to be three doors. It's just gives them a little bit more presence. I think they've sort of pandered to more of a Golf GTI type market, which is fine, but I still think the Golf GTI is the ultimate do-it-all hot hatch. So, in my opinion at least, I don't think a Megane RS should pretend to be, that was an Aston Martin Rapide that just drove past us. I don't think a Megane RS deserves to try to be a Golf GTI. It's its own bespoke sort of hot hatch. Visibility out the back, not very good. Turning circle's good though. Like I said initially, brake pressure is a little bit firmer than what you'd expect, but what it means is when you're upping it a bit, the modulation's really predictable. But even if you're not driving at 10/10ths, you can really start leaning into the chassis feel and the feedback that you get through the chassis. You don't get a lot of feedback through the steering, but you get feedback through the chassis. Kind of similar to the way the i20N drives. Grip is excellent, as you'd expect. We're on 235 section tyres, 19-inch rims, and there is more grip than you could possibly need, I think, for twisty road driving. And hot hatches really are dropping like flies, in the sense that we don't have that much more that are accessible now. If you want to go spend 85 grand on a Civic Type R, then go right ahead, or 75 grand for a second-hand FL5, or I think, I have to double check, I'll put it on a writing, I can't remember how much an FK8 is on the second-hand market at the moment, but it's definitely a lot more than this. Golf GTIs, if you want to do it all hot hatch, get a Golf GTI. But if you want something that's focused and engaging and feels honed in, and you don't want to go spending over $50,000 on one, then a 275 Megane RS just makes so much sense. Interior build quality, well, there's a few creaks and rattles. These door handles are known for falling off if you use any more than a couple of pound of force on them. They seem to flex at the best of times. These seats are the optional Recaros, and they feel really firm, but they're easy to sit in, and the bolsterings and the support is just tremendous. So I'll give it that. Well, Would I own one of these? Yeah, I would. Like I said, probably not as a daily driver, but as a weekend car, absolutely. Value for money. I mean, there's one of these for sale with 80,000 kilometers on it for 25 grand. And yeah, I think this is a very good way to spend 25 grand if you're an enthusiast. It's really good. But I think if you're watching this video, you probably already know enough about these cars. I think they're very much an enthusiast market. Well, if you enjoyed today's video, please consider subscribing. There are more cars to come in the future. And I'm going home just a little bit more depressed knowing that Renault, the RS, no longer exists. But buy them while you still can. Will these cars go up in value in the future the way old Peugeots have? Maybe. We'll see. Anyway, thank you for watching, and I will see you for the next one.